Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here in West Oakland. It's Super Sunday, but we're getting started here a day early with phenomenal bass player, a dear friend of the program, Domingo Balinton. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you.
I just wanted you to talk when you first got into music. When I was driving over here, I drove past a huge tent city, and there's a lot of people that are suffering. A lot of people that are singing the blues. And I wanted to know about how much of your music from your people came out of the struggles and the movement towards equal rights.
Well, I believe all of the music came out of the struggle, from way down south all the way back up here to Oakland, California, and so forth and so on. It's a shame that this has to happen, but this is just a sign of our time, of what's going on in this country, and it's not very good.
Going back, I mean, greed is superseded most anything else at this point. When you see the amount of people that are really struggling, but I just wanted you to take our audience back to the Fillmore District at a time when it was all black commerce, it was all inclusive, and what that vibe was like as it related to love and humanity and the music.
Well, for me, it was love, peace, and happiness, and there was a singing group and a band on every other block. We had about over 50 different clubs you could attend when I was coming up in the Fillmore.
Mm-hmm.
We had about 5 or 6 movies you could go to in the Fillmore. Every black man and woman in the Fillmore, everybody had a job. Everybody had a job. No one was starving.
There was no unemployment.
There was no unemployment. And
Unbelievable.
if you were poor, you didn't know it because you got everything you wanted. And that's the way I came up in the Fillmore. That's how I remember it, from 1943 up until around the early 70s.
At that time, what happened? I mean, did they start to push people out of their I mean, it's funny because, Charles Sullivan was getting hassled by the city of San Francisco, and then even the rabbi was getting upset because people were, up all night and peeing on the synagogue next to Fillmore, and then Bill Graham took over. But what was Charles Sullivan's role, his legacy, insofar as what he was the ground, he was the one that laid the groundwork for everything that came.
Well, he was the one that laid the groundwork for some of the nicest clubs in the area. He had all the bookings. He had the Fillmore Auditorium. He was the first black man to get that particular place where he could book acts coming in like James Brown
And the Flames.
and the Flames and
Dyke and the Blazers.
Dyke and that's right. He had mostly all of something to do with all the nightclubs there, Texas Playhouse, the Primalon, you name it. He had something to do with it. He was to me, he was a great black entrepreneur for people who couldn't go out of their area during that time without being hassled. He fixed it for our folks where they had a place to go day in and day out and listen to some of the most spectacular music in the world.
Domingo, can you talk about? But yet, white cats were totally cool to come into that area. I mean, when I talked to Frank Jackson, he mentioned cats like Bill Evans would come in.
Oh, everybody.
Vince Guaraldi would come down there. So while you would get hassled in the white part or the wherever you know, where there were places you just couldn't go.
There's this place in San Francisco. When I was a young boy, my brothers, which I have 10 in the family.
10 brothers.
10 brothers and sisters. They couldn't go in some places of San Francisco. So that's just the way it was. But you had whites that always came to the film, which are Bop City. I can't remember all of them. The Coffee Dons.
The Red Balloon was one, maybe?
Yeah, yes.
Ed Kelly used to play
Ed
there?
Kelly used to play there. He's gone.
Kicking Curtis Moore.
Right? All of them play.
And the burlesque houses. I mean, were you in there as well?
Where?
It's El Cid's and places, you know.
Oh, yeah, we all went to the El Cid. Matter of fact, my sister used to sneak me into the El Cid.
By the way, your
And
sister is
also-
Sugar Pie DeSanto.
Right. And also Bop City. I have a book here that tells you, and I have a picture of myself being in Bop City. And I was a young boy, like 12 years old. So I saw Johnny Mathis go in and play and sing, Vince Guaraldi, Cal Jader. I'm telling you, these cats were the supreme of musicianship. They were just great musicians that came to the Fillmore and played the nightclubs.
Your first cousin is Etta James.
Yes.
And they started, you started a band called the Peachers.
Well, it was the singing group.
So I want to, here's Domingo at about, what, 16? How old were you when these?
No. I was about 12.
You were
13.
12 years old.
About 12.
And Etta
13.
James was coming over to hang with Sugar Pie.
No, she lived with us.
Etta James lived with you.
She lived with us. So you didn't know. It's all in the book.
It's in. Well, I think we did it in the interview, but so we'll break this down. So, first of all, her parents were not here.
No, they weren't here. They were in Los Angeles. She came up from Los Angeles, and she stayed with us for a good long while. And then my sister Francesca and James Etta and Sugar Pie started a group called the Peaches. And so they went to a talent show at the American Theater.
Yeah.
And they won that talent show. And then another guy came up and saw Sugar Pie and Etta James. He's in the book. I can't think of his name. And discovered my sister. And that's how my sister got her start.
Were they singing, like, from what you can remember? Were they singing original tunes? Were they writing original tunes?
They just sang songs that were out.
Was it doo-wop kind of stuff? What was the kind?
Doo-wop, some not too much blues, but a lot of doo-wop songs and things like that.
Can you demonstrate, like, the kind of what was it? I mean, it's hard for me to. That's not my bag, but yet Gadsden was singing doo-wop, and I mean, people were obsessed with doo-wop. How did you enter into that mix? They said, Domingo, we need a rhythm section. How'd that work?
Run that by me again.
Like when they were singing, they just you were 12 or 13 years old. How did you get to become part of the band?
How did I become part of it? Because I was there at the house playing behind them with my
playing
bass.
Upright. Playing upright?
No, I just had a little guitar then.
Oh, you just a little guitar.
I had a little bitty guitar, and I would play behind them and mimic, being a famous person.
At that time, which is interesting, is that the guitar was not a lead instrument. It was more of you take those Freddie Green, the guitar from the Count Basie band, it was more strumming.
Yeah, it was more strumming back then.
Right, it was more of a rhythm instrument,
Exactly.
And then like Tootie Heath said, it got louder. And he said, I mean, people rock and roll's great, but Tootie, he said it's just gotten to the point where, the saxophone went away, didn't go away, but it was the improvisational, it was the lead instrument.
Right, organ, B3 organ, sax, and drummer was back then in that day, and some guitar players. I'm trying to think of one famous guitar player. He used to play behind them. Claude and the High Tones. Nobody remembers Claude and the High Tones.
Claude and the High Tones.
That's right. But he was one of the guitar players that played behind Sugar Pie and Etta James and my sister Francesca. He was a great guitar player. He lived next door to us. But a lot of the people were back in those days knew about Claude and the High Tones. Very good group.
Do you think that you were influenced by the voices of Etta and your sister? I mean, a lot of cats, like if you're playing guitar or bass, some people say I listened to people that played piano say that they were influenced by horn players, or
No, I was influenced by my mom. My mom played keyboard. She played.
She did.
She played what they call stride piano and some concert piano. So my mother knew all the tunes from the 20s, all the way up until she died in '82. But my mother was an influence on keyboard. But these were some of the older folks that played, and all they did was do swings, jazz. That's how I learned how to play my bass, from my mom. She inspired me.
People are already asking for you to play. They want me to stop talking. So play whatever you feel.
I just do a little, well,
play what you want.
I'm gonna just do a little blues.
Domingo Balinton on the Jake Feinberg Show. You're feeling great again. I mean, Domingo, like, can you? It's just unbelievable. I mean, you talk a little bit about the qualities that your sister. What made her a great leader? What continues to make her a great leader? And what you learned most from her as an accompanist on the bandstand?
Well, run that by me one more time.
Yeah, I mean the leadership qualities of Sugar Pie that you were most inspired by on the bandstand. I mean, would she yell at you, or like especially the rhythm section? I mean, did she have a particular way she wanted you guys to play?
Well, of course, she was a true leader. She would just get on our case if we made too many mistakes. So I took it from her that me playing my instrument, I'd have to be a quality guy playing, and if it wasn't for her and her guidance, I wouldn't be able to play as well as I do today. Because if you don't have a good leader and they don't teach you the right way to do things, you'll always have a problem working with other people.
Well, the right way is very subjective. What was the right way for Sugar Pie in your mind? And how did she?
Most of all, now let's get this straight right now.
Absolutely.
Tempo is the most important thing that you can. Tempo is the most important thing that you can have in the band, and your drummer, the bass player and the drummer, and your guitar player. She was more into tempo and making sure everything went well than anything else. She would rather you sound bad, but you have to keep that tempo together.
Right.
So if you kept that tempo together, everybody had a good time. But if you missed that beat, she'd go bonkers. So that's what taught me how to play so well and how to play so in tune and on the correct beat. How's that?
I dig. I mean, when you great, keep the comments coming in. We but then obviously music took a. I mean, they were doing R&B. Were you going to East Palo Alto to play with them a lot?
I went everywhere. I went.
Michael Shreve, Santana's drummer, had a chance to play with Sugar Pie.
Oh yeah.
But she kicked him off the bandstand.
Well, she kicked a lot of people off.
She kicked. I mean, he's in good company there.
Yeah. Oh shit. She kicked a lot of people off the bandstand. And Larry even played with a guy that you had a conversation.
Larry Van.
Yeah, he played with her. Some of the greatest drummers in the Bay Area played with her. Ronald Wells, Gaylord Birch. I mean, these drummers were good.
The top.
They were the top. She didn't have no bummies. Brian didn't have no bums. So when you get cats like Larry Van to come in, now he's a tempo man. You can't beat him on tempo.
Yeah, I got to tell you, he made it. He was singing and playing drums, which is really hard, and he made it look easy.
It is easy for him. He was trained well.
What for younger cats? If you were coming up in 2018 as a bass player, Domingo, what would you be doing? Would it be the same trajectory? Would you be looking to play with the best cats you could? Is it just if you didn't have family roots in the music, and you were starting out in today's culture with music the way it is, how would you approach your career?
First of all, I'd get my instrument. Second of all, I would take lessons. Third of all, I'd hang with the best cats that I could hang with who knows how to play. Like Charles McNeil and cats like that. I would hang with all the jazz cats, all the funk cats. That's the only way to learn. You can't learn your craft unless you get out there and play with the best of them. That's how I learned. I played with the best cats that I could find to play with.
Could you talk about some of those cats, either whether they're still with us or not?
Like I was telling you before, most of the guys that I played with are dead. Like there was a guy named Ralph Fijay. He played vibes, alto, tenor, flute.
What was his name?
Ralph Fijay.
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 So he was a multi-instrumentalist.
He was a multi-instrumentalist. Bob Stewart. He was a multi-instrumentalist. Keyboard, flute, trumpet. You can ask people about these guys. They know about them. I played with guys that all played multi-instruments. John Turk, trumpet and organ.
And piano.
And piano.
The baddest cat.
Oh, shit. I played with the best cats, man. You name a cat that's been playing for the last 20, 30 years, I had a chance to play with them.
Did you play at Frankie's?
Which Frankie's?
Is that the right name? It was the club that might have been it was a strip club, I think. It was an upscale supper club.
Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to tell you this.
Yeah.
You're not going to believe this. It
Go
just
ahead.
slipped my mind.
Yeah.
I played with Bobby Freeman
Yep.
for 4 years straight down in North Beach. Now, this is true. This is true. And I played at every strip club down there in North Beach. Everybody knows me. As a matter of fact, I was in a movie. What the hell is that?
Oh, was it Oakland's Evolutionary Blues?
No. This is a real movie.
Look at the people. They want to see your face. Yeah.
Oh, they want to see this.
They want to see your beautiful face, man.
What the hell? The guy that said "Make My Day." I was in that
Clint
movie.
Eastwood.
Clint Eastwood.
Wow,
I was in that movie at the Roaring Twenties in North Beach. I was playing bass with Snooky, and everybody knows Snooky too. A bunch of other good cats I was playing with then.
Yo, Snooky, that guy, man. I gotta find that cat, man.
Yeah, he played not alto sax, but Oh shit! What's the big sax they play?
Barry Sax.
Barry sax.
Can you talk? I've talked to people like Chris Parker about. He was a drummer that played in strip clubs, and it was really imperative that you hit the moves of the dancer. And it's very different from today's types of strip clubs where there's just a lot of house music, very pulsating backbeat. There's really, I mean, the women are kind of pole dancing, but what they were before.
Oh yeah.
How would you hit their moves?
Oh, they just give us the tunes that they wanted us to play behind them, and we would just play them.
You make it sound so simple, but
and it was simple. They didn't put on no airs back then. They give you the tune what they want to play, and that's what we did. We played the tunes, and we never had no problems of touching them or, being out of pocket with them down in North Beach. I worked down there for about 6 years. About 6 years with Bobby Freeman and Carol Dodo.
Carol Dodo.
I played all them clubs, man.
When Coltrane and Pharaoh and Sonny Rollins were stretching out the music, were you woodshedding on upright? Were you playing? You played all those. Were you playing?
I played upright. They were older than me. I played upright in high school, and my sisters used to take me to Bop City to see Johnny Mathis. And when Johnny Mathis first got started, I saw Coltrane when I was a young man, around 12, 13, because back then, as I remember it, when I went to those clubs at Blue Mirror, they didn't say anything to young people like me as long as you acted right and you didn't start no mess. My sister could take me anywhere because I knew how to sit down and be a gentleman. And that's how I soaked in all that different music, because all these cats, the ones that you mentioned, came to the Fillmore and played. And that book I showed you, my family's all in this book of what we had accomplished in the Fillmore at that time.
Harlem of the West.
Harlem of the West. And everything is in there about my playing and my brother Mario going to Juilliard. He sang at Bop City with Johnny Mathis and all that. That's why I know so much about it, because we were in that era. I was the youngest out of the 10, but my brothers and sisters took me everywhere with them so they could expose me to music. So when a guy comes up to me and tells me, yeah, I'm a jazz player and I can play, I don't say anything. I just listen. Then you know if a guy really can play. If you have the experience of seeing all these older gentlemen play, then you know if a guy really has, been to the woodshed and practiced his art.
Talking to Domingo Balinton here on the Jake Feinberg Show, Saturday here in West Oakland. Bird used to listen to the radio and listen to everything on the radio and play with it, and then he would figure out what key it's in, and then he would learn to play every tune in every key. So he was crossing genres, and he was stretching. Right. Did you have the same kind of... How did you learn to master your instrument? Because, today you get locked in, and maybe you're playing too much low end and not enough high end. When you're playing your solos, dude, they're melodic. The melody never leaves the tune.
Never.
So how did you learn to play every tune in every key?
Well, for one thing, I would listen. We had a record player. I would listen to the tunes, learn the tunes, learn bebop tunes, and just use my head about. Just listen and learn. I had lessons. And that's how I learned how to play. And then being around all that music, it comes to you a little bit more simpler than it would if you had no great musicians or other people who are in the music field around you.
What about younger cats today that are saturated with YouTube? I mean, they don't, you don't even know what. Before it was the radio, which the pop music was, jazz was the pop music of the day. There was R&B, and today there's just we're saturated with so much material that unless you really are seeking and you really know what you're doing, you may not really know what's authentic music or not. I mean, how do you talk to younger cats about that?
I don't. I let them find out for themselves. If you're going to play an instrument, pick out a genre that fits you and that you really want to do. Don't just go all over the place and try to learn everything at one time. Learn the instrument first, and then take your strides outward to see what type of music you want to play. That's what I did. I wanted to play jazz. That's what I did. But when I heard a certain person played uh, the electric bass, I switched over.
Who was it?
Oh God, he was with Motown. A guy named James Jamerson.
James Jamerson.
Yes, he came to the Fillmore one time, and I saw this guy play, and I switched over.
What was he doing that was live? I mean, that's so beautiful because a lot at the top.
His syncopation and the way he played, so smooth, so melodic. I said, damn, man, that's what I want to do. So I took my upright, put it downstairs at my mom's house, went and bought me a Fender bass. I still got that bass, that Fender bass.
I'd love to see that at some point. And you got the upright too.
Oh, I got both. You want me to get my Fender bass?
No, we're live, right? Well, yeah. I mean, if it's here, yeah. Talking to Domingo Balinton here on the Jake Feinberg Show. He's got a plethora of stories here, and this book here, Harlem of the West, chronicles his entire family, including Etta James and Sugar Pie DeSanto and all the cats at Bop City. And it's a cat who really was coming up at a pivotal time in music, at a time when communities were, in fact, incredibly inclusive, especially black communities with black commerce. And here we go. What do you got? Wow, look at that, man.
That's
Look.
what I started on.
All right, well, is that still playable, or?
Oh, yeah.
Let's hear some of it. Let's hear what it sounds like.
I took the strings.
What year is it, by the way? Is it 61 or something?
58, 59. You know, you unwind the strings so it doesn't bend your neck. So it's not tuned because I don't use it anymore.
Sure.
But that's what it looks like. And it's got the double pods on it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this goes back a long way with me. Cold blood, everything.
Yeah, so I mean, once things started to go, I mean, you talk about the first time that you I mean, were you out with Sugar Pie way out in front of before Janice, before Tower of Power, would you say? I mean,
oh yeah, way before them. They weren't even around back there in the 50s. They weren't around in 58, 59.
That's the thing, is that were you wanted to play jazz, but did you start up playing R&B before jazz?
Well, no, I started playing jazz first with my mom. I played while she was on the keyboard.
So can you play the bass to a stride tune and demonstrate?
God, that is hard to do.
But you were doing it.
Yeah.
Or you were playing guitar at that time.
I played a little guitar then. That would be hard for me to do right now.
Yeah, well, it's fine. You know, play what you feel. People want you. People want you to just groove.
Just a groove.
Just a groove.
Oh.
Got to plug it in. Yeah.
Here's just a little thing.
You know, it was funny because generationally you were so out in front of those cats, but you told me in our radio interview that Paul Jackson was he taught you some stuff.
Well, he just showed me how to do, because I was playing so percussive, because he showed me how to hold my notes down a little bit better, getting a better sound out of him, because he was a master at that. When he was with the Headhunters, if you listened to that boy play, you'd understand why I wanted to, you know.
Could you go a little bit deeper? Like, it was less percussive and more round?
Well, round is like when you hold the note a little bit longer. Because of it's
Right.
when you hit it and you don't let it breathe. Or,
Right.
exactly.
It's short.
So a lot of bass players that I've seen play too percussive. So they don't give the band the roundness that they should.
Absolutely.
That they should have. Good bass players, really good bass players, listen to the song and say, oh, that's where that goes, that's where this goes. I should hold here, I should play a little bit more percussive here. But I hear a lot of cats now, they just play. They just don't have, well, the feeling.
Is that part of it? Is that due to digital music? The fact that it's not, we're not having human hearts
right, yeah.
pumping the rhythm section. I mean, they don't really know what they're hearing.
They don't. That's what the problem is with a lot of the music that's being played today. But hopefully they get back to playing the way they used to play, with the real violins and everything that really goes on in the music that makes the music round. I know people try to save money on just using a keyboard to do a lot of the sounds and stuff, but you can tell it's artificial. That to me, it just doesn't sound good. I love to hear music that is
round. Did Sugar Pie want it round, or was it more percussive?
No, it was round.
It was round.
See, the people that did blues back in the day, all of that was round if you really listen to it.
We got to shut that door. There's a little bit too much leakage coming in there.
Which door?
That TV there.
Oh, this door.
Yeah, this door. So yeah, blues from back in the day was not percussive.
No.
The bass playing was.
No.
Not percussive.
It was not percussive. It was very smooth and very, very round.
So when you met up with Paul, it was because you were looking to incorporate funk music. Is that right?
No. I was just wanted to incorporate a better way and a better sound and everything. And he had a great sound, and I wanted to know how he produced that sound. And when I saw his big ass hands, he had huge hands, and when he pressed down on them strings, he knew how to just get good sounds out of his strings. Where cats like me that were just looking and trying to figure out things, you know, he had it all down.
People are saying they need to hear your voice more. Now Domingo's he's been, you know, so project as best you can.
Oh, I try to project, but I have that cool voice.
Yeah, very cool, man.
I'm a very cool guy. I'm having fun with myself.
Like, I guess going back to what I talked about before with the did you play, was there ever a period of time where you felt like you were playing movement music that would raise social consciousness, that was intended for peeps to stay inspired and not drop out? All I'm saying is today I stopped by a tent city, and it was hard. It was nauseating for me to see that.
Well, I know it's nauseating for me to leave out of my house and see it.
I know, and you're here every day. And Tucson.
So,
but was there a period of time where you could think that you were playing music and you said, "Boy, you know, we are me"? I always consider jazz to be movement music. It's not. It's not about staring at facility or, you know, any, you know, monster chops. It's about the inner cry. That was what it was about. I don't hear that today, but I wonder if there was a time in your career where you felt like you were doing that in any genre of music.
No, I just play. I was just, no, I'm telling you the truth.
I know. I dig the Etta James was not. She was just singing the blues, but
yeah, we just did our thing back then. We didn't think about things like that because what you're seeing today, we never saw that before. There weren't people living on the streets and having a hard time. Like I told you, back from the 40s, 50s, 60s, and part of the 70s, everybody had a good job and was working. The bands were working in San Francisco, and Oakland was jumping. So we never thought about things like that. Today, when I leave my house and I go up there on Telegraph from where I live, it hurts my heart it just hurts my soul. You know, to see my people like that. And they tell me it's going to get worse before it gets better, and I'm hoping that it doesn't.
Well, I just hope in our lifetime we see maybe something getting better, because it doesn't seem to be getting. I mean, Cat came up to me and I was trying to take some pictures, but it was too shadowy, just because I want to keep it in my head. So I keep focused on what my sacred journey is, and knowing that there are people that are really struggling. And
Really struggling. Really struggling. I do everything, my wife and I do everything we can to help out our family and people we know that are struggling. I can't tell you who they are.
absolutely not.
We help them out all the time. And the little money I got and what I've made, I don't mind helping people out. You know, that's my genre, helping people and playing.
Why is it important to help people, Domingo?
Because that's the way my family was.
But I mean, in your mind, okay, your family taught you that, but what are the benefits of being a good guy?
Peace of mind. Peace of mind. Being able to sleep. Being able to focus on what you want to do. That's one thing I was able to do.
People are saying you got a cool voice, man. Speak up.
I'm a cool brother. I'm a Fillmore brother. And that's the way we acted back in the day. We drank wine, white pudding, lemon juice, and smoked cigarettes. That's what we did, and played music.
Did you get in trouble? I was hanging with Ronnie Beck, and he talked about sometimes cats would get a little bit anxious because they really weren't part of the street, in terms of they'd be saying, "Where's my cash? Where's my cash?" And people would say, the old blues cats would say, "Dude, everything's going to be taken care of. You're going to get paid at the end. Keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
You know, you're not in the house. You know, like just dig it." Did you have, was there sort of an initiation period for you, especially like, did you play with King Pleasure at all? Do you play with any of those cats?
No. I played, let me get it straight now. I played with my sister. I played with Eva a little while. I played with the Whispers. I played with Cold Blood. I played with a group called the Crescendos. I played with Bobby Freeman.
What about that band that
I played with the LBJs.
the LBJs, man?
Latin blues and jazz. That's how I learned how to play Latin music. I don't know why you didn't bring that up, because I actually played jazz and Latin before I even played blues, because of my mom's influence. And then when my sister picked up and started playing blues, I wanted to do some of that too.
So you were heavily influenced by Jader, though.
Oh man,
Benny Velarde and
oh God, Candido and all them cats. That is.
how did it change bass playing in your?
They were so, I can't think of the words. They were so proficient bass players, Latin bass players, in what they did. I can't think of all the words I like to say. How they make you feel when they play. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, they were. You know, you have to have that kind of feeling in your heart to lay bass like that. So I learned how to lay it like that, and then plus my little jazz and then blues. So I had a good genre going on, playing bass.
Domingo, what does the word jazz mean to you? A lot of people say it was on it was the brothels on the naval bases. Max Roach didn't want that term used. They didn't like it. They thought it was beneath what the music was. I know the West Coast was much cooler and not as uptight about it, but did you refer to music in genres, or was it just all music back when you?
To me, it was all music, and jazz is fun. I don't know where they got that from, but jazz is a fun genre to play, especially if you can play. If you can't play your instrument, I don't advise you to play jazz, because it'll frustrate you. If you can play fast and out with all the air out there, you're a good player, and it's fun to do that. It's not always fun to just play doom, 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 doom. Sometimes it's good to let it all hang out, but you have to know your craft to do that.
Well, I saw this cat Michael Oliver Warren last night with Larry Van, and he was on fire. I mean, dude, the vocabulary, but it was not obnoxious. It was just it was,
in the pocket.
and the melody was always there.
Right. can play.
I mean, I think that's something that has to be said about improvisational music. Over time, the fusion music got too complex and people stopped being able to tap their feet to it, or they lost the melody.
They lost the
I think that's what you loved about Jamerson, is that the melody was always
every
in the
time.
bass line.
Every time you have to really go out and study what this man, what he was melodic, but also he also knew how to stick the pocket. He knew how to play jazz, but he was cool in everything he did, and most of all, he had fun doing it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Ronnie Beck and I wound up at a club the other night, and the cat that was playing, he was playing. I mean, everything was proficient, but it was so perfect.
You don't want to play.
It was just floating, and I wound up sort of just tuning out. You know, I want that burn. You know, you want to burn.
Ronnie Beck is a burner, baby.
Dude, he's hungry, is what he is. He's still hungry.
He's a hell of a good drummer. I mean, one of the best around.
You've been mentioning about my interviews with LV and Coulter. When did you you cross paths with Coulter when he was with Tower?
When I was in Cold Blood, we were on the same shows. A lot of people don't know that. Cold Blood, Tower of Power, Cool and the Gang, the cats that made Cisco Kid.
A War, Harold
We
Brown,
were
and
all on the same show together. And I'm not lying. Bobby and them would come out and say, "Man, who's this cat on bass?" I'm talking about Chopper Conch. He was even on the shows with us. And you can check it out.
oh, there's no doubt.
We were all on the shows together. Then we went to Hawaii and played that big stadium. We were all down there, Earth, Wind, and Fire. That's how I got to know everybody. But they just knew me by my bass playing, not personally. They would come in, we'd be playing. We were always first. We would go, but then you had Tower of Power, Cool and the Gang, and all them cats. You know, on the shows with us.
What's your philosophy as it relates to? I was hanging with Kenny Barron in New York, great pianist, and he's like, my whole mission is just to touch people when I play music, touch their hearts. We've gotten to a point now in pop music where you got cats like Justin Bieber. I got two young daughters, and their generation is growing up and saying, "Wow, I dig that because they're famous and they are wealthy."
Oh,
but that was not the MO of you wanted to play music that touched people.
Right.
You talk about that?
Yeah.
I mean, and what bothers me is that your soul is hurt, and rightfully so, when you see the inequity and the injustice and the poverty here, just here in Oakland, San Francisco. It hurts your soul. It doesn't uplift you to want to go home and inspire. Again, you've done your thing, but that's the part that's deflating to me, is that cats like you are hurt by that, and I don't blame you, but it doesn't uplift you.
No.
And rightfully so.
No. Music to me is something that cools your soul and makes you feel good. I try not to relate my music and how I play with what's going on out in the world, because I wouldn't be able to play. It's just too heart-wrenching to think about what's going on and try to play your instrument. So I put that on one side and my instrument on one side, and I try to go straight ahead and do the best that I can with people and help out. And I try to stay out of the mess.
And you give back. I mean, you try to give back. I mean, you guys are just cats like Domingo and Coulter and Ronnie. You guys should be in office right now. We'd be moving ahead a lot.
Oh, if you had a cat like Coulter in office and shit.
Ronnie,
Ronnie Beck and cat.
John Lee Hooker. I mean, get Hooker in there.
We'd have a hell of a lot of fun.
And that's what.
Well, let him be president.
Do you think that I remember Dick Burke, the great drummer, talking about, John Hurt had a stuttering problem. Mike Wolf had his own issues. Cal was a big drinker.
Yeah.
Dick Burke weighed 300 pounds. Everybody had their own issues, and they poked fun at each other, and they laughed about it. They didn't take themselves too seriously. But then all of a sudden in music, it was like, well, where's my limo? It became a lot more important about the materialistic. When did we start taking ourselves too seriously as human beings, especially in the musical industry?
As soon as we stopped, how do I say it? As soon as we stopped really listening to ourselves and listening to our hearts and saying, this is the way music should be done. Music as a way of telling what's going on in the world.
Even if you're blocking it out, you're like,
Exactly.
that's fascinating. It's just the vibrations.
That's what life is, vibrations. That's what it's all about. And if you don't have no vibrations, guess what? You don't have no music or no life.
Probably no soul.
Nope, none. No soul at all. So I hope and pray we get back to the way, in some ways, that we used to play. I go out and hear John Lilienthal and his band play. They're sort of a jazz band, funk band, but they have a